It was just past midnight when Dr. Marcus Reed slammed his foot down on the gas pedal. The engine roared as his car shot forward, cutting through the empty city streets like a blade through silence. Streetlights blurred into long yellow streaks. The clock on the dashboard glowed 12:07 a.m. Too late. Every second already felt too late. Red and blue lights flashed behind him, painting the road in violent color. A police siren screamed in the distance, growing louder with every heartbeat. Marcus gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, his pulse pounding harder than the siren chasing him. But Dr. Marcus Reed wasn't running from the law. He was running toward death, trying desperately to outrun it. Just minutes earlier, his phone had exploded with sound while he stood in his small apartment kitchen, halfway through reheating cold leftovers. The alert wasn't a normal call. It was the hospital's emergency system, the one reserved for moments when lives hung by a thread. Code red. Massive internal bleeding. Patient crashing. Trauma surgeon needed immediately. Marcus didn't hesitate. He dropped everything. No shower. No second thought. He grabbed his keys and ran. Now, as the city rushed past him, his mind replayed the words over and over. Massive internal bleeding. That usually meant a ruptured organ, severe trauma, or catastrophic injury. Without surgery, patients like that didn't last long. Sometimes minutes. Sometimes seconds. And tonight, Marcus was the only trauma surgeon close enough to make it in time. He was still wearing his blue hospital scrubs. The fabric was wrinkled from exhaustion, stained faintly from the previous shift he had barely finished hours earlier. His hospital badge hung clearly from his neck, bouncing against his chest with every turn. Anyone who looked closely could see it. His name. His photo. His title. Dr. Marcus Reed. Trauma surgery. His phone sat mounted on the dashboard, the hospital's emergency app flashing bright red. Vital alerts pulsed across the screen. Heart rate unstable. Blood pressure dropping. Time slipping away. Every second mattered. Marcus pushed the speedometer higher, his eyes darting between the road and the screen. He whispered under his breath, not a prayer, but a promise. Hold on, he said. Just hold on. Several blocks ahead, an ambulance raced through an intersection. Siren wailing, lights blazing. Marcus knew who was inside. An unconscious woman lay on a stretcher, her body battered and broken. Tubes ran from her arms. Blood soaked through bandages that were no longer enough. Paramedics worked frantically, pumping fluids, calling out numbers that kept dropping. Back at the hospital, the ER team was already assembled. Nurses stood ready. An operating room was being prepped at record speed. Instruments were laid out. Machines warmed up. Everything was waiting on one thing, the surgeon. Marcus's jaw tightened as the siren behind him grew closer. No, no, no. He slowed slightly, raising one hand through the window, badge visible. His mouth moved, rehearsing the words he planned to say. I'm a doctor. I'm responding to an emergency. Someone is dying. His heart slammed against his ribs as the police lights flooded his car, turning the interior red, then blue, then red again. The city that had been silent moments earlier now felt loud, heavy, and unforgiving. Marcus glanced at the clock again. 12:11 a.m. 4 minutes gone. Inside the ambulance, the woman's heart rate spiked dangerously. A paramedic shouted for more pressure. Another squeezed a bag of blood, willing it to move faster. Her skin was pale, almost grey. At the hospital, a nurse stared at the entrance doors for the 10th time, whispering, "Where is he?" Marcus finally eased the car toward the curb, his chest burning with frustration and fear. He knew what delays could mean. He had seen patients die because help arrived 30 seconds too late. He rolled down the window, hands visible, badge still clear against his chest. The police cruiser stopped behind him. He took a deep breath. What he didn't know, what no one knew, yet, was the identity of the woman bleeding out on the operating table. She wasn't just another emergency case. She wasn't just another patient. She was Evelyn Carter, the wife of the city's police chief. And the man sitting in that speeding car, the man about to be detained, was the only person who could save her life. The city held its breath, and time kept moving forward. The intersection exploded with flashing lights. Two police cruisers surged forward at once, cutting Dr. Marcus Reed off from both sides. Tires screeched. The sudden force of it jolted his body forward, the seatbelt biting into his chest. He hit the brakes hard, hammering as the car came to a sharp stop in the middle of the road. Before he could even breathe, loud voices filled the night. Turn off the engine. Hands on the wheel. Do it now. Marcus didn't hesitate. He shut off the engine immediately and placed both hands flat on the steering wheel. Fingers spread wide. Slow movements. Calm movements. He had learned this discipline years ago, not in medical school, but in life. He stared straight ahead, breathing carefully, fighting the urge to look at the clock again. A spotlight blinded him through the windshield. Footsteps approached fast and heavy. Doors slammed behind him. The night air felt suddenly cold, sharp, and dangerous. Sir, do not move. I'm not moving, Marcus replied evenly. The officer leaned in, scanning the inside of the car like it was a crime scene. His flashlight swept across the dashboard, the steering wheel, the back seat, then paused on Marcus's chest. The hospital badge was right there. Clear. Visible. Unmistakable. Marcus took his chance. I'm a doctor, he said calmly but urgently. I'm responding to a surgical emergency. Someone is dying. But the officer didn't respond. He didn't ask what hospital. He didn't ask what kind of emergency. He didn't look at the flashing red alerts still glowing on Marcus's phone mount. Instead, he straightened up and spoke louder. Step out of the vehicle. Marcus blinked, confused. Officer, please. Step out of the vehicle. Marcus swallowed hard. His pulse thudded in his ears. He opened the door slowly and stepped out, keeping his hands visible just like he'd been told. The second officer moved closer, positioning himself slightly behind Marcus. His hand rested casually, but deliberately, on his weapon. Marcus could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. I can explain, Marcus said quickly. I was speeding because I was called in for emergency surgery. If you want, you can escort me. I'll follow every rule. I just need to get there now. The first officer scoffed, a short sound full of disbelief. Everybody's got an excuse, he said. Marcus shook his head. This isn't an excuse. This is someone's life. Silence followed. Cars were non-existent at this hour. No witnesses. No distractions. Just flashing lights, hard stares, and time slipping away. The officer finally spoke again. License and registration. Marcus handed them over without argument, though his hands trembled slightly as he did. He glanced instinctively toward his phone. The emergency alert flashed again. Vitals unstable. Blood pressure dropping. Marcus felt something twist painfully in his chest. Please, he said, his voice tighter now. I'm needed in the OR right now. They're waiting on me. The officers didn't respond. They walked back to their cruiser, speaking quietly into the radio. Marcus stood alone on the asphalt, the cold seeping through his shoes. He shifted his weight, every instinct screaming at him to run, but he didn't move. He couldn't. Minutes passed. Each one felt like a blow. Marcus's mind betrayed him, filling with images he couldn't push away. He imagined the patient on a table, skin pale, chest rising and falling unevenly. He imagined a nurse calling out his name. Where is he? We need him now. He imagined the monitor flatlining. His jaw clenched. His throat burned. The officers returned. Turn around, one said. Marcus froze. What? Turn around. Hands behind your back. His heart dropped. Officer, no, please listen to me, Marcus said, the calm in his voice beginning to fracture. You're costing her life. I swear to you, someone is dying right now. The officer's expression hardened. What you're doing right now is resisting, he replied. Turn around. Marcus turned. Cold metal snapped around his wrists. The sound echoed louder than the sirens. As the handcuffs tightened, panic surged through him, not fear for himself, but for the patient he could no longer reach. This is a mistake, Marcus said quietly. A terrible mistake. No one answered. He was guided, pushed, toward the curb and told to sit. The concrete was rough and cold beneath him. Back at the hospital, chaos erupted. The calm, controlled rhythm of the emergency room shattered as alarms began to scream. Monitors beeped wildly, their steady patterns dissolving into frantic warnings. Nurses rushed from bed to bed, voices overlapping. Footsteps pounding against the polished floor. The patient's condition was deteriorating, fast. Her heart rate spiked dangerously, racing like it was trying to escape her chest. Blood pressure numbers plunged on the screen, dropping lower with every passing second. The 4 bags emptied too quickly. Blood soaked through fresh bandages almost as soon as they were applied. Pressures crashing. A nurse yelled, "We are losing her." In the center of the trauma bay, the unconscious woman lay motionless, her face pale beneath harsh fluorescent lights. Tubes ran from her mouth, her arms, her chest. Machines breathed for her. Machines watched her struggle. But machines could only do so much. What's her ETA to surgery? A resident asked urgently. The charge nurse turned, panic flashing across her face. "We are waiting on Dr. Reed," she said. "He should have been here 10 minutes ago." 10 minutes. In trauma medicine, 10 minutes could mean the difference between life and death. Where is Dr. Reed? A nurse shouted across the room. No one answered. The charge nurse grabbed her phone and dialed his number again. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. She tried once more. Straight to voicemail. Her hands trembled slightly as she lowered the phone. "This isn't like him," she whispered. "He never misses a call." Another doctor stepped forward. "Call another trauma surgeon." "We did," the charge nurse replied. "Closest one is over an hour away." An hour. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. A resident glanced at the monitor again and swallowed hard. She doesn't have an hour. Nurses moved faster now, voices sharp, movements precise but desperate. Someone called for more blood. Someone else adjusted the ventilator. A third nurse wiped sweat from her forehead, eyes locked on the falling numbers. Then, suddenly, the doors to the trauma bay burst open. The hospital administrator rushed in, his face drained of color. His usually calm demeanor completely gone. He held a tablet in his hand, fingers clenched tightly around it. "We just identified the patient," he said quietly. Something in his voice made everyone stop. The alarms still screamed. The machines still beeped. But the room itself fell into an eerie silence. "Who is she?" The charge nurse asked. The administrator hesitated. Swallowed. "It's Evelyn Carter." The name hit the room like a shockwave. Every doctor froze. Every nurse went still. For a moment, no one spoke. Evelyn Carter was not just any patient. She was the wife of Police Chief Daniel Carter, the most powerful law enforcement officer in the city. Across town, the quiet inside the patrol car was broken by a sudden crackle from the radio. "Any units currently detaining a Dr. Marcus Reed?" The voice of the dispatcher cut through the night, sharp and urgent. The 2 officers sitting in the cruiser stiffened. They exchanged a quick glance. One of them reached for the radio. Yeah," he replied. "We've got a Marcus Reed stopped for reckless driving." There was a pause. Not the kind filled with static, but the kind that felt heavy, deliberate, and dangerous. The dispatcher came back on, her voice slower now. "Tighter. Confirm. Dr. Marcus Reed. Trauma surgeon." The officer frowned. "That's what he claims." Another pause. Then the dispatcher spoke again, and this time, every word landed like a blow. "Release him. Immediately." The officer blinked. "What?" "Release him. Now." Confusion spread across his face. "Dispatcher, we've got him detained." "Do it," she snapped. "Right now." The officer pressed the radio closer. "Why?" The answer came quietly. Too quietly. "He's the trauma surgeon assigned to Chief Carter's wife." Silence filled the car. The dispatcher continued, her voice shaking just slightly. "She's crashing. If she dies, this stop will be investigated at the highest level. Every second counts." The color drained from the officers' faces. The words replayed in their minds. Chief Carter's wife. Crashing. Investigated. Outside, Dr. Marcus Reed sat on the curb, hands cuffed behind his back, staring at the pavement. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. He was still counting seconds in his head. Then suddenly, hurried footsteps approached. "Sir, Dr. Reed," one officer said, his voice completely different now. "We are removing the cuffs." The metal snapped open fast, almost clumsy. "I'm sorry," the officer added quickly. "There's been a misunderstanding." Marcus stood up immediately, rubbing his wrists. He didn't look at them. "Where's my car?" he asked, already moving. "Right here," the other officer said. "We'll escort you." Marcus didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand an apology. He ran. He sprinted back to his car, jumped inside, and started the engine in one smooth motion. Before he could even pull away, the police cruisers surged ahead, lights blazing, sirens screaming through the empty streets. Traffic lights turned green on approach. Intersections cleared. The city opened up for him like it never had before. But Marcus didn't feel relief. He felt rage, and fear, and a crushing urgency burning in his chest. He glanced at the clock. Too much time lost. As they neared the hospital, his phone buzzed again. Patient coding. His breath caught. The police cars skidded to a stop at the emergency entrance. Marcus was out of the car before it fully stopped, sprinting through sliding glass doors that flew open as if pushed by fate itself. Inside, the ER exploded with sound. "She's coding." Someone screamed.